Welcome back to News Geelong this Friday evening. In the AFL, the Cats are undefeated, so let's head to Simmons Stadium with the head coach, Chris Scott.
Andrew Mackie, is he 100% right to go?
We're not sure yet. He's got quite a complex issue with his hamstring. He was right to play on the weekend and did a really good job for us. It's not a traditional hamstring strain, and to be honest, I don't really understand the detail around it, but he's a genuine question mark for this week.
Stephen Motlop, another go in the VFL, or are you tempted to bring him into this side?
Well, we're tempted because his preparation's been really good to this point. On some levels, his preparation was good enough for him to play at AFL level, but as we've said a number of times, we've taken a long-term approach with the rehab from this injury, and it would be folly for us to bring him back prematurely. So the one thing we can guarantee our players and staff and supporters that when he takes his place in the AFL team, he'll be well and truly ready. So it will be talked about this week. But we're not in a position to confirm it just yet.
Could he potentially be a sub?
Yep. Yeah, he could be. Yeah, he'd be a pretty handy sub. But I think, our position, and we're not saying he's not going to be the sub, but our position is when he's ready to play AFL football, we'll need to be sure that he can play at the full game, because even as a sub, he can get an injury in the first minute and he needs to have the capacity to play at the full game. So again, we're not going to risk it at the margin. So he's either right to play as he normally would in an AFL game, or he'll play modified game time at VFL.
I know he's now played pretty well for about 20 minutes, but if Josh Walker, can he do any more in the VFL?
Well, he played pretty well, didn't he? Yeah, he was good, particularly late in the game when Box Hill really had us under pressure. He was really strong. So Walks is doing almost everything he can to force his way into our AFL team. There are occasions where players are unfortunate that either the team's playing well or there are some individuals playing well in their preferred positions, and Josh is probably in that category at the moment. But we're really confident that he'll play a part in our AFL team at some stage.
Chris, how have the players bounced back after Monday?
Pretty well. To be honest, I find these questions a little difficult to answer intelligently because it's hard to know exactly how they're feeling. But the feedback that we've got has been really positive. They're always tough games. So the way the players are feeling reflect that to an extent, I'm sure. But they're professionals. It's a 6-day break. We don't think that's going to influence the way we feel on Sunday at all, really. We knew the fixture a long way out. We've been preparing for this week for a long time. Had we won or lost against Hawthorn, it would be irrelevant to how we prepared for the next week against Port.
Where Port were 18 months ago, and the fact that they're playing a top-of-the-table clash this weekend seems quite remarkable. What Ken's been able to do with the group, it seems as if there's no ceiling on it. I mean, there are people that are talking about them potentially being a grand final contender or definitely a top 4 contender. Is that the way you see it? You can make that progress in such a quick time?
Well, they're living proof. Yeah, we've got a very, very healthy respect for Ken. Being an ex-Geelong person, our players rate him very highly, and we're under no illusions that they're going to be an exceptionally well-coached team. But I think, and this is not taking anything away from Ken, they have some unbelievably talented players, and they have had for some time. A few of them have been unfortunate with injuries, guys like Hartlett and Gray. I think the whole footy world knew when they got an uninterrupted run in it, they were going to be pretty handy players. And you throw in their early draft picks from previous years, and they're a pretty formidable group of players. So talented players, well coached, good system. It all adds up. I'm not here to talk about Port Adelaide, except to say that we are fully aware that we need to play our very best football to beat them.
Do you need to pick a side that can match their running power in terms of thinking along the lines of your 3 ruckmen? I know you get asked about this a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious answer from our perspective, and I don't feel the need to promote our running power. I think internally there's a level of confidence there. We don't need to talk about it too much externally. But specifically with the 3 ruckmen, we think one of them's the best runner in the comp. So he's not limiting our running power by any stretch.
state of the game has been spoken about a lot this week. It seems to be the trendy topic. Are you concerned, or are you one of the coaches that thinks that we just need to calm down a bit?
I'm open-minded. Yeah, I'm well and truly in the middle, I think. I see my role as the coach of Geelong, as it relates to the laws of the game, to give some feedback when it's called for, do it in private, and respond specifically to what we would do as coaches if certain rules were changed. I don't feel any need to lean on the laws of the game to go one way or the other. In fact, it's completely the opposite. I'd rather take a step back and let them do what they need to have the game in the best shape, and then we'll adjust accordingly. But I will say that some of the things that we're seeing this year are a result of some rule changes from previous seasons. So when you change something, you've got to expect a reaction. So I think it's logical to ask the coaches, if a rule were to be changed, what would be the probable response to that change? And to my mind, I might be a little bit different to some people, but the footy I'm watching, especially the good games, I think it's a little bit more spread than it has been in previous seasons. I see forwards ahead of the ball a lot more than we had, say, 2 years ago. I see some teams trying to possess the ball a little bit more, which I'm sure is a response to the lower interchange numbers. It's common sense that if you change something, there will be a reaction. So, to answer your question a bit more specifically, I would move forward slowly when it comes to changing the game. I tend to think that the game's in very, very good shape, and I might have the blinkers on, but when I watched footy of 15 years ago, I'd take today's footy any time.
Because I think Nick Riewoldt said something along the lines of no matter what changes you make, the coaches are going to figure it out eventually and then come up with something. So it's almost going to be chasing your tail, because whatever rule changes, you guys are going to figure out the best way to play within those rules, and then you've got to keep going.
Yeah, but without sounding completely altruistic, I feel like I've got a responsibility to coach a football team that plays an attractive brand of footy. Sure, we want to win, but we think that the two things go hand in hand. And I sense that there's a little bit too much focus on the poor games at the moment, and not enough focus on the really good games. Most of the games that I'm watching, particularly with the good teams, are fantastic spectacles. And I'm not in the camp where some people appear to be that want to talk the game down. I don't understand people that love the game trying to talk it down. I think the game's fantastic to watch. I've never been more intrigued by AFL football than I am now. I even tune into games that were played 5 years ago, the old replays on Fox Footy. It's nowhere near as good to watch for me. But I understand I'm only... I only have one small opinion in the game, and if the lawmakers and the powers that be choose to change it, then we'll adapt as best we can. I certainly won't be fighting against it.
Chris, it's obviously 5 games into the interchange cap.
Yep.
I suspect you'll agree that with the sub-rule, it took a little while to work out the best way to use it. Has it been easier with the rotation cap to be able to work out how to time your rotations and the like? Or are you still figuring that out?
No, I think it'll keep evolving. Yeah, I think it adds another layer of complexity for the coaches. I'm not complaining about that. It's not a huge issue for us, but it's another thing that we need to think about. And I think with most of these things you can theorise as to what might happen or what you should do, but until you actually live in it, it's really hard to form an intelligent conclusion. So I'm sure that we'll approach it differently in 10 weeks' time to the way we do now.
It's your first look at Adelaide Oval. Do you have a run on there on Saturday afternoon?
No, that's not our normal program. Occasionally we do it when we go to Perth, but that's only because we leave a little bit earlier. No, we're pretty comfortable that, knowing the dimensions of the ground and the fact that it's going to be pretty round and have goalposts at either end will be enough for us.
Thanks for that, Chris. That's it for sport. Back to you, Ian.
Well, that's our time now. We've just got about to close the News Geelong for this week, but we will be back on Wednesday night, of course, at the usual time at 6:30. On behalf of Graham Rawlins and the team, have a very happy weekend and good night.